He's already sent it to me. I said, maybe he sent it to you. You're not even on the contract anymore.
Hi. I missed you, Bruce. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Welcome to those of you joining us online. It's so wonderful that you can join us online, and thank you, choir, for the beautiful music in the morning. I have to say, I'm moving a little slow this morning, feeling a little just overwhelmed by the energy of my love for you all, and just being home and being back in your presence. For those of you that don't know, I've been away for the last 3.5 weeks in India, and it was a world apart, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about my journey, but it's a joy to be home with you. For any of you that are joining us for the first time, a special welcome to you to Emerson, whether that's here in person or online. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and this means we open our arms wide, welcoming you and all of you in all your many identities, whoever you are, wherever you call home, whomever you love. Know that we honor and welcome you here with us. Today is the second Sunday of Advent. Christians and others around the world use this time of Advent to anticipate the coming of Jesus' birth. Often Unitarian Universalist Christians view this birth as a birth of consciousness, the consciousness of compassion and love and light, something that I think we could all use. So let's acknowledge this time of the Advent season by lighting our Advent candle. Last week, you lit the candle of hope, so I'll relight that one. The first Advent candle is the candle of hope, and then, I guess that was this one. And the second candle is our candle of peace. And our words this morning to go with our lighting candle of peace come from Pope Francis. Pope Francis says, "May we be in this world a ray of light which shone forth from Bethlehem, bringing joy and peace to the hearts of all people." And may it be so. And because Advent is a time to celebrate, I figured a good song to open us up this morning would be "Now Let Us Sing." I think it's time to sing. You guys all got to sing, and that sounded great. I'm going to invite you all to rise in body or spirit and join in the singing. I think the words are going to come up on our screen. If not, somebody give me the hymn number. 368. That would be in the gray hymnal. And we'll see if we get some words up there too. Now let us
Good morning. Good morning. Whoa. My name is Bernadine Cataletta, and I extend my welcome to each of you today, and I'm so glad that you're here. Each Sunday, we pause to light our chalice as a symbol of Unitarian Universalism and our commitment to be a beacon of love in the world. This morning, Natalie Holmes will light our chalice.
Leading words this morning are from Bill Nye. Everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't.
And now, in the spirit of the beloved community, let's greet and welcome each other to this new day. As we share our congregational affirmation, we need not think alike to love alike. Those in the sanctuary, please feel free to move around and offer each other greetings. For those online, please use the chat to introduce yourself or to unmute and say hello.
Good morning. My name is Beth Klein, and I serve Emerson Unitarian Universalist as your Director of Family Ministry. Part of this responsibility is my membership on the pastoral care team. At this time in our service, we pause to reflect on and share our joys, sorrows, and concerns in our lives and light candles of our shared care. Prior to the service, we lit 3 candles that hold our collective sorrow and hope. These candles recognize that collective pain and suffering of the Cherokee and Muskogee nations of people who lived on this land before us, the African Americans who were brought to this land and enslaved and in pain and suffering, all nations of people where there is conflict and injustice. Before our service each week, you're invited to add to this care table lighting a candle for anyone you're holding in your heart, and also signing in any joys and sorrows you'd like to share collectively during the service. May all of the lights on this table humbly remind us of our interconnection and the impact of our collective actions. May they be the light of hope for peace among all people. Now we turn to our shared joys, sorrows, and concerns for the folks who have written them. Our first entry today is a sorrow that's listed. Many of you may not have known Dimitri Sinkel. He was a joy to have as a congregant and an active person at Emerson. He was a longtime member, and he moved back north to Massachusetts after his retirement, and he died this week due to cancer. He will be remembered very fondly. Dimitri was very active at Emerson. He served on various committees, the Emerson Board of Trustees, and was our board president during the late 1990s. We give our hearts thoughts and prayers to his family and his wife, Iris. We know that there may be joys, sorrows, and concerns that are not spoken here today. As Reverend Deborah lights our candles, please feel free to say out loud or type into the chat if you're watching from home the name of someone you are holding dearly in your heart today. Bonnie. Please join me in a moment of silence as we allow ourselves to feel a part of this community of prayer. Let us send our heartfelt, caring intentions to each other and to all beings everywhere by offering the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. Please repeat these words after me. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be at peace. May we all be at peace. Blessed be.
Oh no, this is your time.
Oh, okay. I'm confused. Am I playing an instrument?
You can.
Well, not well anymore, but our Share the Basket partner for this month of December is El Refugio. El Refugio has been accompanying immigrants detained at Stewart Detention Center in Lumpkin, Georgia for almost 12 years, visiting those who wish to have a friendly visitor, advocating for the rights and release of those ICE is detaining, welcoming families to their hospitality house, assisting those who are released from detention, and providing much-needed immediate support. Over the past year, El Refugio has reopened their hospitality house after the COVID shutdown, and they are welcoming families. They've resumed the detention center visitation program. It's required much advocacy work, including sending a letter to Georgia senators signed by more than 50 organizations and congregations, asking for senators' intervention to reinstate visitation. Continued advocacy work through official complaints and public campaigns that has had an invaluable impact on the lives of people detained. 14 people have been released from Stewart thanks to their efforts. Along with partners, filed a complaint on behalf of 4 women who survived sexual abuse at Stewart. Conversations with members of Congress about the need for a full independent investigation of abuse and neglect at Stewart continue. They provide much-needed support for people detained and their loved ones through
commissary support, sending books, legal referrals, financial assistance to families in crisis who are related to detainees. Many of us have visited detainees at Stewart Detention Center in the past. Most asylum seekers are frightened and alone, and a friendly person makes a huge difference in their lives. Some of us are still in contact with some of the people we visited. I got to visit my friend Mohammed when I went to Kenya and have dinner with him as a free person. As a part of our partnership with El Refugio, we will be writing holiday cards today to those being detained at Stewart Detention Center. It's been told that they really enjoy getting a card and knowing someone knows they're there. Please see your order of service. Please see your order of service for details, and please be generous today to support El Refugio. They are one of our partners that are near and dear to my heart.
Hey there, I am Noel Garwick. It is now time for the story for all ages. So the young and the young at heart, please come on up here. Senior youth, if you want to come up, so it looks like, like I got a little audience, a little pull, come on through. All right. Okay. So today's story is about friendship. When I think about friendship, I think about witches that eat little children. Bear with me, okay? So today's story, it's going to be liberally borrowing from a children's book called Bony Legs, which is by Joanna Cole, illustrated by a man named Dirk Zimmer. But the story is much older than that. It goes back to the land of Russia. Is that a good accent? Yeah? Okay. And even further than that, you also have similar stories that pop up from different indigenous tribes here. And you're probably saying, that doesn't make sense. How could this witch get all the way over there with those bony little legs? But there's a good reason. She liked to travel. And because she liked to travel, she had a magic big pot that she would sit in, and it could fly, of course. Oh, good. There you go. You'll be able to help me out.
It's about a girl and it's...
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. Shh. So anyway, she'd take out a big soup ladle, and she could swim through the air, just kind of row through the air like that, right, as witches do. And if she got tired of that, she also had a house, and this house sat on big chicken feet. So it could go around wherever she needed to go, right, except water. But we'll forget about that. So our story is about a young kid named Sasha. And one morning, Sasha's mom said, "Hey, you're not doing anything today, right?" And Sasha said, "Well, I was going to hang out with my friend." "Okay, yeah. So I need you to take the stuff to your aunt." So Sasha said, "Okay." So she put some bread and some meat and some butter in there, along with some flowers for her aunt. And Sasha's supposed to go eat this, lunch, right? So Sasha goes out. And one thing that's really important to know about Sasha is that Sasha loved animals. All kinds of animals, big and small. She was always giving birdseed out to the birds. If a little squirrel fell out of a tree, she would pick it up and come nurse it back to health with a little tiny baby bottle and a tiny little bed and everything. Yeah, you guys can do that too, if your parents say it's okay. Yeah. So anyway, when Sasha was walking, her mom had said, "Don't go off the path," right? It's a big no-no. But Sasha had a good reason to go off the path, because you know what she saw? Giant tracks that looked like they were made by a giant chicken. And all she could think was, "I just want to hug that chicken so bad. It's probably so big and so cuddly, right?" What would you guys be thinking? I think, "Oh no, it's going to want revenge for all the nuggets I've had," right? Yeah, it's going to be, right? So Sasha, went and followed the tracks, and eventually she got to a squeaky gate. So when the gate squeaked, she felt bad for it. So she took some of her butter out, and she oiled the hinge, and she closed it. Instead of going, it went. That's the sound of silence. It made no noise. So she went up the path, and she saw this skinny little dog that looked so hungry. So she took the bread, the only bread that she had, out of her little basket, and she gave it to the dog. And the dog's tail started wagging. It was really happy. And then she saw a little cat that came by, because the cat's like, "Hey, me too." Meow, meow. That's a good cat noise, right? There you go. So she couldn't help it. She took out the meat that she had, and she gave it to the cat. And the cat was really happy. It started purring. So then Sasha went up to the house to ask for directions, and to ask what was going on with the giant chicken feet under the house. It's a little weird. And immediately she saw Baba Yaga, the witch, who threw open the door and grabbed the girl by the shirt and tossed her right inside. And the first thing that Baba Yaga did is she said, "You look delicious." And she licked Sasha right in the forehead. And then you know what Baba Yaga said? "Ew, when was the last time you had a bath?" And Sasha said, "A couple days, but my skin gets so dry if I do it too often. So Baba Yaga went and pushed her into the bathtub, into the bathroom, and locked the door, slammed it shut and locked it. Because eating children is one thing, but eating a dirty child, ew, witches have standards. So Sasha was real upset, because she didn't want to take a bath, and she really didn't want to be eaten. So she started crying. And as she was crying, she heard a little knock on the window. And she heard a little meow. And she looked up, and who was there? It was a kitty cat. That's the noise I make. That's right. So she popped open the door, and the cat hopped down, and it said, "Sasha." And Sasha said, She'd always wanted to meet a talking cat. And the cat told her, okay, you need to go escape out here, run through the woods, and run as fast as you can, because the Baba Yaga is really, really fast on her little skinny legs. And she goes, well, she's going to know that I'm gone. She'll be checking on me. And the cat said, I got it covered. Right? So Sasha escaped, and she ran, and as she was running, the dog stopped her, and it said, Sosha, and it had a Russian accent. And it said, take these with you. Throw them down if you get into trouble, right? So she looked, and there was a beautiful little mirror, and there was a wooden comb. So she put those into her bag, and she started running, and she got to the gate and threw it open, and the gate said nothing, because it was a good gate, not a snitch. And she kept running and running. So as she's running and running through the woods, back at the big house, the witch goes and knocks on the door. Are you washing, girl? And the cat said, meow. Yes. Cats are kind of mischievous. And the witch said, hurry up. So Sasha's running and running and running. The witch goes and she checks again, because this has taken a long time. Bats do not take that long. And she said, are you washing, girl? And the cat goes, yes. And the witch goes, So she didn't get to be this old by being dumb. She knows something's up. So she kicks the door in, and what do you know? There's a cat. And she goes, you naughty cat. And the cat just kind of laughs, and runs off. So Baba Yaga starts running, and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs. She can do a 540. She's so fast, right? And eventually, Sasha looks behind because she hears the bum, 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 bum. And there's Baba Yaga. So she does what the dog told her. She takes the mirror and she throws it behind her. And all of a sudden, the mirror goes, and there's a flashlight. It expands into this huge mile-long lake that you can't run across. You can't do anything like that. She's not quite fast enough to run across the top of the water. That'd be crazy. So Baba Yaga goes and she stomps, and she shouts, and she pinches her own nose because she's so angry. And then she decides to run back, and she grabs the first watertight thing she can think of, which is the bathtub. So she goes, boom, and picks it up and starts running all the way back to the lake, tosses it down, and then she uses her hands to go and goes swim across the lake in the bathtub. She gets to the end, and she starts running, and she's so fast, she catches up with Sasha again. So Sasha goes, what do I do, what do I do? The comb. She takes it out. She tosses it behind her, and all of a sudden, the wooden comb explodes into a really thick forest, so thick that the witch can't squeeze through it. She can't jump over it. She can't dig under it. So she goes and she stomps, and she shouts and she screams, and she grabs her own ears. She's so angry. So she goes and she runs back, and she's so mad that she picks up the bathtub and she throws it off into the sun. And she realizes that was a bad idea. How am I going to get back? So she just gets so mad that she's able to run fast enough this time to skim across the water, right? Is that too crazy? Okay. So she gets back, and this time she goes, I have a flying pot. So she grabs the pot, she hops inside, and she goes back. And you're probably wondering, well, this forest is so thick and crazy, how would she know where to go, over to go find Sasha? And the answer is that she took off one of her socks before she left, and she tied it to a tree so she knew exactly where to go. But as she gets closer and closer and closer, she finds out that that cat and that dog and that gate are not the only friends that Sasha had. Because as soon as they heard she was in trouble, some birds and some squirrels and raccoons and such, a possum or two, they had a plan. So they all took a bunch of socks that looked just like that they happened to have on hand, and they went and they tied them around all the trees in the forest that they could find. So Baba Yaga gets closer and closer, and she goes, that's not good. And what do you know? She's completely confounded. So she stomps, and she shakes so hard that she falls out of her pot into the lake and gets all wet. And by that point, she decides just to go swim home and just have some hot dogs.
I thought she would melt.
She would melt?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Say like, I'm melting and stuff.
Nah, that's too violent.
Oh,
I mean, she's...
I've heard this story, but it's a lot scarier.
Oh, okay. So,
We're
Sasha,
gonna keep it PG this time.
we have to. I can't scare the little kids. I get in trouble when I do that.
It kind of sounds like the Wizard of Oz.
A little like the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. So, so Sasha went. She made off to her aunt's. She gave her the flowers, and she went the other way back home, following the path this time to get back to her house. So remember that you can find friends in the strangest of places, and someday they may save your life.
Can I say one thing?
Go for it.
Can I say one thing about the scary part? It's not that scary.
No, go ahead.
How she gets out is the cat, there's a pinwheel, and she gets the girl. It's not, her name's not Sasha, it's Vasilia.
Okay.
And she's like, and there's the pinwheel, and the cat, for some reason, knows how to do the pinwheel. And then there's a little girl that's also there, and she tells her to run, and the dog can't talk.
That's scary.
And they run, and there's no lake or forest or anything. But the cat keeps doing it, and the Baba Yaga's like, "Are you still doing it?" and she doesn't hear a voice.
Oh, so that's how she wants to check on her.
That means she ran, and she ran right after her.
So do you like it better that way, or do you like it with the magic? I like the magic better. That's cool too, though.
It's really scary, so I would probably say that.
Okay, sounds
I
good.
think it's time for our story. I mean, our song. We
Our
had
song?
our story.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Let's all sing our song of dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. That was wonderful. Thanks, kids. Baba Yaga. That was kind of scary, but I'm going to invite us to close our eyes anyway. Don't be scared. So I invite us into this time of centering, just to take a few minutes as we let go of some of the outside activity of our service to start to draw your attention in. So it's always good to use the breath for this part, letting the eyes be soft or closed if you like. And go ahead and let yourself take one nice big deep breath. And then follow that nice big deep breath with another 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. In many, many cultures, spiritual practices begin with the breath. It's a way to connect the external world with the internal world, taking in the breath, letting it sit inside of us, and then exhaling and releasing that which we don't need. Breathing speaks to the very core of the circle of life and the essence of life. Taking in and letting go. Meeting each other and meeting ourselves. Let this be a time in this service today, perhaps the time in your day, maybe even the first time in this week that you've given yourself to just sit. Invite yourself to breathe in and breathe out. Knowing that it's these quiet moments inside that allow us to come back out with more clarity, hopefully with more peace in our hearts, more space. In fact, allowing yourself to take times of silence is perhaps one of the core works that we do in our efforts to help change the world outside of us. So don't short yourself this time. Let yourself breathe Let us prepare to meet those outside of us by meeting ourselves. Allowing yourself to gently open your eyes as you like, but maintaining the space inside as we begin to prepare for our message of the day. In meeting, we are blessed.
It was last week. It was like 2 weeks ago.
We are met together, and in meetings we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. We are met together, and in meeting we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. We are met together, and in meeting we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. We are met together, and in meeting we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. Hold on, dear brother. Hold on, dear sister. Hold on. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. We are met together, meeting we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. You're not alone. You're not alone, and you never more will be. I will be with you, and I will carry you with me. Friendship endures, endures, and surely we will prove it's not ourselves, but our bodies that move. We are met together, meeting we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. We are met together, meeting we are blessed. Peace in coming and in going, peace in labor and in rest. Hold on, dear brother. Hold on, dear sister. Hold on. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
So I have a little disclaimer before I begin today's message. I'll be sharing some of my experiences from my journey to India. If you didn't guess, those were some of the photos. I just want to say I don't claim that my experience represents all of India or all of Indians or what anyone else's experience may be in India. Mine is but one tiny, very complex perspective of a very complex, very large nation. My intention in sharing about my journey is not to give you a tourist travel log, but more to invite you into my inner questions and struggles about life and spirituality that the journey brought forth for me. Some of these questions and struggles may resonate with your own life and questions as well. India is a place of contradiction, at least that's how it occurred to me. Maybe all places have their own brand of juxtaposition, but India's tension between the sacred and the profane perplexed me throughout my journey. In one sense, India is this amazingly spiritual place where people seem to prioritize service to others and time for connection over acquisitions. It's a place where people make space for the sacred in the most mundane of places and take time to honor their ancestors and acknowledge the divine. And yet many people of India live in what we in the West would call extreme poverty. India's women live under the oppression of a patriarchy that at times horrified me to witness. The caste system and colorism continue to define many people's opportunities. LGBTQ people are often ostracized and subjected to physical harm, especially in rural communities. And there seemed to be little to no accounting for those with disabilities. I struggled with these and other opposing realities throughout my journey, and though my reflection here ends on an uplifting note, these tensions remain with me. So keeping all that in mind, here we go. Meister Eckhart, the Catholic theologian, once wrote, "There is no such thing as a spiritual journey. God is not out there," he said, "somewhere beyond us to journey to, but rather already always present within the silent middle of the human soul." Of course, I believe him, and yet I also believe that sometimes we need to go out first and meet the world in order to get back in to meet ourselves. So allow me to share 3 stories from the many meetings in the world of India that I had. I embarked on my spiritual journey to India with 2 friends who I had lived with in spiritual community for over 30 years. We went as a pilgrimage to the temples of our gurus and the yoga lineage from which they came. And we went to spend time at an Ayurvedic healing center. Ayurveda is the ancient Indian system of health and healing that is said to have been codified 3,000 years ago. The first stop on our journey took us to a place called Kair Rohan, which was in the Gujarat state in northwest India. Our guru's guru, named Swami Kripaluvanandaji, lived in Karvan for decades when he was not a traveling Swami. Karvan is the way the locals say Kair Rohan. And it's home to the large temple of our lineage, one of many beautifully crafted temples throughout India that exist right beside these regions of poverty. Most people in the town of Kair Rohan live in stone dwellings hundreds of years old, homes consisting usually of just 2 rooms, one with a cooking area, usually with the cook stove on the ground, as women would sit on the ground to cook. And the other was a gathering room, which often doubled as a bedroom. Furniture was sparse in these homes, and for many, their furnishings was a carpet, perhaps a chair or 2, or a swing. They liked these big wooden swings. And sometimes a platform bed that doubled as a table. Another woman named Indukanta from our community had been living in one of the few more modern large homes on the outskirts of towns for the past 20 years, and she invited us to stay with her. Indu would act not only as our travel guide, but also as our meet and greet guide, because over the 20 years of being there, she had made quite the connections with locals, the local swamis, the chaiwalas, and the children alike. Every morning on our way home from 6 a.m. prayers, which were followed by 6:30 a.m. chai, we would encounter 6 or 8 children on the street excited to share the morning ritual they had started with anew, a fist bump. It seemed to delight them as they knew little English and she knew little to no Gujarat, but somehow the morning fist bump got the day started. On the second day of our trip, we made our way deep inside the winding old strips of Karvan to visit a tiny one-room temple connected to our lineage. It's a long story, but prior to the new grand temple being built in the early 1970s, the main Shiva Murti, which is, the Murtis are the statues, so the main Shiva statue of our lineage was housed in this small temple deep inside this tiny town, since it had been discovered in a farmer's field in the late 1800s. Again, long story. Anyway, as we walked out of the temple after visiting it, which would be more accurate to describe as a small room than a temple, we found a group of teenage boys watching us. With great curiosity, they asked us where we were from. This was a question we would get often in our time in India. And then they asked us why we were there. We told them about our connection to the site and to Kayavrohan, and they seemed sincerely fascinated that 4 middle-aged white American women would have such a connection to their tiny little town. Then they asked for our photos, again, something that we would encounter over and over everywhere we went. People from little kids to much older adults would point or use broken English to request a photo with us. I think it's the closest I'll ever get to feeling like the paparazzi was following me. After we left the little small temple and started our way back up the street, one of the boys came running up behind us. Ma'am, he said. We were called ma'am a lot. Would you come to see our temple? He seemed so eager to show us, how could we say no? So off we went, following this group of boys deeper into the back winding streets of the old town. Now, only for a split second did I think that if these young men meant us harm, we would have little hope in finding our way back out. But their energy was far from anything nefarious. It was more like little kids anxious to show us a treasure they had found. So after a few minutes, our guides led us through a stone doorway to another small room containing a stone altar. Durga, one of the boys said, pointing to the Durga statue. Durga was a Hindu goddess. He motioned for us to get closer. So we sat down and began to pray. Soon the small space was filled as friends and relatives must have been called to see these strange white ladies kneel down and bow to the goddess and then sit to meditate. I thought they would all join in our meditation, so closed my eyes, but when I opened them, I just found them all staring at us. There was about 20 stuffed into the small room. Our host let us know with pride that this temple had been in their family for generations. It was where they prayed every morning and every evening. After a while, they asked us for photos again, and there was lots of giggling in the air and joy. Once our shoes were back on and we were ready to leave, another one of the boys asked shyly, "Would you come to my temple too?" he said. My friends and I looked at each other, simultaneously catching on. This wasn't just a game of show and tell. It was becoming obvious that somehow our presence in their temples was seen as a blessing to them. Now, I have no idea how some pale-skinned ladies from halfway around the world could have the power to bless their generations-old sacred spaces, but I don't think that mattered, because it was clear that they thought so. And so we humbly went to the second temple. The temple surprised us on several fronts. First was the elderly woman, who seemed to go unnoticed by the boys as she sat disheveled at the entry to the temple. They pushed by her as if she did not exist. The second surprise was that inside this very humble stone exterior was a marble-lined room about 8 by 12. Floors, walls, and ceilings were all covered in marble. It too had a goddess altar. We offered our pranams, we bowed, and even chanted a little. And again, many people came to gather and watch us. and pictures were taken. Those present seemed truly grateful for the blessing we offered their temple, and eventually they escorted us back out the winding streets to where we had first found them. As we walked, I continued to ponder what we had just experienced. On one hand, there was extreme poverty in this town, and yet here we saw how some families were so devoted to their deities that they would dedicate what would often be 25 or 30% of their available home space to this altar, to these temple rooms. But then on the other hand, how do you walk over a woman without noticing her to enter a temple to a goddess? Meeting both these realities side by side perplexed me. And these types of perplexing meetings continued as we made our way to Varanasi in the sacred river of the Ganges. The Ganges River flows from the Himalayan mountains and is said to be the most sacred to the Hindus. Sadhus, spiritual seekers, and lay people alike come to the Ganges for a sort of communion to have their sins cleansed. We were guided in our time in Varanasi by a friend of a friend named Prakash. And Prakash is from the Brahmin class, and he was a Varanasi native. He lived in the same house that his parents and grandparents and those before him did for 8 generations. The Ghats are the steps along the Ganges that descend from the streets of the city down to the river. Each set of steps is named for a temple or a place, and there's about 88 Ghats used for prayer and ceremony and bathing. There are 2 Ghats used for cremation. Much to our surprise, one day Prakash took us right down to the middle of the burning Ghats, right beside the funeral pyres. It is considered very sacred to have one's body burned after death at the Ganges, and the fires continue there 24/7, burning about 200 bodies a day. The fires for these funeral pyres are all lit from the same small fire housed in a stone balcony overlooking the pyres. This fire is said to have been lit 3,500 years ago by Lord Shiva himself, the god of transformation. It has been tended ever since and is said to have never gone out in those 3,500 years. Once a body is placed on the stack of sticks and logs, the eldest son or closest male kin goes up to this sacred fire and gathers some of it and takes it back down for the fire to be lit. While we were there, we watched a young man, only 42 years old, be placed on his funeral pyre. His 12-year-old son, head shaven, as is the custom, dressed in white, retrieved the fire, circled his father, and lit the sticks underneath him. It would take about 3 hours for the body to burn to ash. As his pyre was being lit, the one beside it had just completed its task, and the fire tender called out for the family to come and remove the ashes, which then they would place in the river. When we asked why there were no women tending the burning ceremonies, aside from us interloper spiritual tourists, the answer was simple, Prakash said. Women are too emotional. There is a myth about Sati, Lord Shiva's wife, who got mad at her father for not acknowledging her husband, Shiva, and so threw herself on a fire. The fallout of this myth is that thought that being too emotional, women would be throwing themselves on the funeral pyres, and so they must stay at home while their loved ones, the men, tended to the burning. Also, someone had to stay home to clean and prepare the meal. Again, a society of contradictions and frustrations for me. Sacredness and unjustness burning side by side. The last meeting I want to share with you was in southern India in a small town called Coimbatore. It was here that my travel companions and I settled in for something called Panchakarma, 5 actions. It's part of the ancient Indian healing system of Ayurveda. Panchakarma consists of some purging, which you'll be grateful for, will not explain. However, it also consists of some very nice, gentle body works, body therapies. During my time there, my main body therapy they prescribed to ease my busy mind was called Didadara. Basically, it was this warmed, herbal-infused liquid that looked kind of like Kool-Aid, and they would pour it over me while laying on this large wooden trough-like table. Two women used these little teapots and would pour the liquid over my body, rubbing my joints. And they did this for over 45 minutes while a third woman kept reheating the liquid that would drain off from the table. It was actually very relaxing. My sessions with these young women would always begin with a prayer chanted by them in unison, and then they would end by one of them giving me a bath. As you can imagine, this daily ritual is more than just a spa service. Each of the three girls could not have been more than 25 years old and not an ounce over 80 pounds, if that. They spoke very little English, so except for sharing smiles and a few key phrases, our time together was often in silence. I had no idea what they must have thought of this very pale foreigner who traveled from so far away, who spent more money to be there in a week than they would probably make in 2 or even 3 years. And as I laid there, nearing my last day, I began thinking of all that privilege that I held. I kept thinking, how was that okay? Maybe I should not have come. Maybe my presence was doing more harm than good to those that were here. And I started to question everything about my trip. As the session came to an end, Rahama, one of the women who had been with me each day, placed her hand on my shoulder. It was time to sit up and finish the treatment. And as I did, Rahama and I caught each other's gaze, but in a different way this time. Deeper in some way than it had before. I smiled, and she touched my face, kind of patting it, and she smiled. I don't think she could have read my mind, but it kind of felt like she could. And she was somehow telling me that it was okay. Later in my room, I turned on a recording of the Irish poet and writer John O'Donoghue. As if speaking directly to me, he said, "In each human face, there is something eternal going on. Behind the facade of our normal lives, there is an eternal kind of destiny finding its way, opening us up. Bring courage to your presence," he continued. Learn how to meet yourself. And that's when I had my little aha moment of the trip. It dawned on me that these meetings, the ones with deities inside temples, the one with women on the temple steps, the burning bodies on the ghats, and the ones with the many people who had invited us to drink chai or share a meal in their homes, who simply graced us with a look of presence. Each one was a blessing with us, and each one contained an incredible invitation. Be courageous, they seemed to say. Open up and meet yourself right here, too. You see, for much of my journey, I viewed them as separate. I was viewing their life sometimes with horror, sometimes with amazement, sometimes in awe, but always as separate from my own, especially in the contradictions that I was afraid to get close to. But we all live in contradictions, don't we? And I'm sure that those that saw me also viewed my life and the contradictions it contained with horror, amazement, and maybe even a little awe. Perhaps the blessing in meeting is precisely the opportunity to see it all, the places that are sacred in each of us and the places that are profane, the places that make sense and add up, and the places that just don't. Maybe the sacred temple doesn't exist without the pain on its doorsteps, the funeral pyre without the burning of separation, or healing without the purging. How privileged of me to think that I could have one without the other. In the end, Meister Eckhart, of course, was correct, that something I was journeying towards was with me all along. But I too was right, I think. For it was in meeting the silent middle of another's soul, perhaps only really accessible in the contradictions of our lives, that my own soul became better known to me. Indeed, in meeting we are blessed. And I arrive back here with you now, still in process, but with a prayer in my heart. I'm going to invite you now into a moment of silence as I offer this prayer, a moment of reflection. So I'll let you gather yourself for a moment. Perhaps settling in your own heart the many contradictions in your own life, recognizing the contradictions in our society, recognizing the places that we try to run from, wanting to have only one part of life be real, wanting to separate ourselves from places of pain. And here is my prayer for us all. May we meet each moment as a blessing. May we recognize the blessing in each person we encounter. May we look deeply at the dynamic contradictions of their lives with love and honor as we look at the dynamic contradictions of our own. May we offer a look of recognition of the silent middle we both share. May our meeting be a blessing to us both, and may it reveal to us our shared, interconnected destiny. Blessed be. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of this journey and supporting me in the journey. It definitely was a journey I'm still processing, as you might be able to tell. I'm going to invite us to feel the connection with each other. I said, Bruce, what should we end this service with? I said, I got a friend. Do you have a friend? A few. And Bruce has a few friends. So let's share our friendship together with our closing song. I think the words are going to be on our screen. You've got a friend everywhere you go, my friends. Please rise and let's sing.
Winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there anytime you got a friend. People can be someone that hurt you, desert you. They'll take your soul if you let them. So if you let them, you just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there beside you. You got a friend. You got a friend.
Oh, turn to somebody and just hug them or something, or send them like a little beams of light. So usually I don't cry with that song. I just want to cry. Anybody else feel like crying right now? Is it just me? Yes, a few? It's okay. I want to give official permission for fellowship time to be a time to just cry. You may stay in this room and cry if you want, or do whatever you want. It has been declared. I'm going to end with these closing words from John O'Donohue from the Book of Blessings. It's called On Meeting a Stranger. With respect and reverence, that the unknown between us might flower into discovery and lead us beyond the familiar field, blind with the weed of weariness and the old walls of habit. Seems like there should be another sentence to that. Anyway, may we come together with respect and reverence, knowing that what is between us, there's so much to be discovered. Amen. I think we have some announcements this morning, Bernadine. And I think we had a special announcement too, coming up. Come on over, Bernadine. Let's extinguish the chalice, and then I think we have some special announcements, something to do with cookies. That's a good announcement.
By our worship today. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or about Emerson, please stop by our welcome table in the front entry. Peggy Gastrite is there this morning to meet you. Please plan to join us next week when the children of Emerson present the Christmas pageant. We hope you will join us then. As our chalice is extinguished this morning, please join Natalie in the final words. They are posted in the chat and in the order of service.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Please join us for refreshments and fellowship in our fellowship room on the first floor in the back, by the back doors. At 11:15, we offer religious education and exploration for children, youth, and adults. Please see your order of service for today's offerings and times. Next week, again, is our special children's pageant that you won't want to miss. It'll be a great celebration for all. Our service is now concluded, but our connection has only begun.
And where was our cookie announcement? Oh, come on up, Carol.
I have an appeal because I'm putting together the holiday cookie boxes that are a part of the Epicurean episodes. For $15, you get a box full of handmade cookies by your Emerson friends that can be ordered on Realm. But in order to do that, we need a lot of cookie bakers. I'm looking for people who can bake about 4 dozen cookies. We need them to come to the church next Sunday the 11th, or I can pick them up or meet you anywhere between then and the next Saturday, the 17th, for the cookies to be picked up on the 18th. There's a sign up out front. If you can help us out, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. And yeah, so Ginger, you want to talk about Epicurean episodes in general?
In general, and back in the fellowship hall, there are some sample cookies that you can try while you are signing up for one of our exciting Epicurean episodes. So see you back there.
Awesome. All right, forget the crying. Let's go eat cookies. Go now in peace and take peace wherever you go. Blessings, everyone. It's so good to see you again. Hit it, Bruce. And James. And Mark.
still
very
be.
well. Yeah,
But
exactly.
then once we get to the patches,
I-
and that's what this
I totally
is.
missed
This
that.
is just the narrator's
Oh, it's
cue,
okay.
and then